Hi, I'm Jason Dasey, former CNN, BBC and ESPN broadcaster, now working with ABC News Australia. And these are my top 5 tips for creating contacts and getting the story. Point number 1, assessment. You've got to assess what's needed for your contact book. For example, if you're being posted to Parliament House in Canberra, the contacts you need would be quite different to, let's say you are starting a role as the Hunter Valley correspondent based in Newcastle, New South Wales. So you've got to work out exactly what's needed for your role. Now, ideally, the person you're replacing or someone who's doing a similar job, you can sit down with them and maybe pick their brain and find out who they've been speaking to. Or if that's not possible, speak to a mentor of yours, someone who's an experienced journalist, and talk it through with them. And another idea would be to look back at stories over the past 6 to 12 months in that region or area and find out who's been quoted a lot and work from there. Point number 2, consistency. You've got to be consistent when it comes to creating contacts and developing contacts. For example, once you've worked out who you need to speak to in your area, you need to reach out to them and find out how they like to be contacted and introduce yourself. Say, is it okay if I call you every week or every month to find out what's going on? How do you like to be contacted? Is it via email, by telephone, text message, WhatsApp? And then you've got the consistency of every week or month, go back to them and find out what's going on. So just kind of establish early on, introduce yourself, say what you're doing, say you're new to the role, and is it okay, can I contact you again another week or month and follow up and find out what's going on. Point number 3 is stay open. Now, a lot of times when you create contacts and you speak to them, there's not much going on. And, for example, let's say you call up the police media, which I did not so long ago when I was doing Queensland News, and often it's, as quiet as anything. But be open for the big story. And a previous capsule, I was talking about open-ended questions. So when you are calling people up and having a chat, don't just say, oh, there's nothing going on, is there? And try and get off the phone as much as possible. Leave it open and say, what's going on? Is there something happening? Get into a bit of a chat with them, and you never know what's going to come out of that. I'll give you an example. When I was a very young journalist, I was a cadet reporter at the Sydney Morning Herald, my hometown paper, and I had the most boring job as a cadet. It was the shipping round. And the shipping round is where you get the coming-ins and going-outs, arrivals and departures of ships into Sydney Harbour. So you could do this a couple of ways. You could call up the Maritime Services Board and get the information, or you could travel on the bus from the Fairfax office in Broadway, where it was at the time, down to Circular Quay, and get them in person. So I decided I'd just do it that way and get the shipping details. Now one day, because I'd had a good relationship with the guy that gave me the shipping information, his name was Michael Robinson, I remember that, it's a long time ago, and we were having a chat, and I said, oh, what's going on, Michael? He said, well, actually, Jason, there's a very big story, and I just want to share it with you. And this was the height of the Cold War. And he said, there's a Soviet sailor, a Russian sailor, who's jumped ship in Sydney Harbour, and we think he's gone to see his girlfriend. He has an Australian girlfriend. And this is a great story. So I went back and I wrote up the story in addition to my shipping information. And then the next day, I got a phone call, and it was someone in the Russian community who'd seen the story, and they had the guy, the defector, in their house. So I was only 18 or 19 years old at that time. So we did a series of stories about, the repression of the Russian Soviet regime and how he wants to build a new life. He didn't have a girlfriend, by the way. That was something that was just a rumor. It turned out he just wanted to have a new life. And this gave me several big stories. And can you imagine as a teenager having these big stories? And it was all because I was very, very open at the time, and I just didn't think, oh, I'll just get the shipping information. Maybe there's a big story out there. Okay, point number 4 is follow-up. You've got to follow up, not just, with the consistency of speaking to your contacts, but let's say something happens and you get a good story, then share the URL, share the article, share the video, whatever you can with the person who gave it to you, and say, look, great job, thank you so much. And then you're building a relationship for the future. For example, when I was working recently in Queensland News for ABC, I did quite a lot of medical stories, and medical stories are all the rage at the moment. And because I shared the URL of my story on ABC Online, I got a lot of other stories as well that were really good. and it builds that relationship. It shows that you're grateful. And quite often, in the digital world that we're in now, there'll be moments when, they'll say, look, there's a small error there. By the way, you said it was 472 cases. It's actually 475. We've got an update on that. So that's the beauty of following up and keeping that relationship going. Point number 5 in my top 5 tips for curating contacts and getting the story: be real, yet professional. So it's all about authenticity these days. You've got to be really who you are. Don't pretend to be someone else. Don't be fake, Show who you really are, but be professional at all times. For example, it's okay to share, a frustration from work with a contact. My boss is on my back, if they want me to get this story, this and that. But don't share about, I've just broken up with my boyfriend or my girlfriend, or I'm struggling to pay the rent. That's not appropriate. So, feel free to, maybe share that you are inexperienced or that you're kind of new to the role, because people will like that. Just like when I was 18 years old and I got that big story at the Sydney Morning Herald, I think they saw this baby-faced kid and they wanted to help him out. But do make sure that you are always professional and authentic. So just to recap my top 5 tips for curating contacts and getting the story. Tip number 1 is assessment. Assess what's needed when it comes to your contact book. Tip number 2 is consistency. Set a way of communicating with your contact and make sure you follow up. Don't have these big gaps of like months and years and then people are saying, who are you? Also, be open for a big story to come out and not just thinking that nothing's always happening. Point number 4 is follow up. Do go back to your contact, thank them, share the URL from the story, share the video, share the audio clip. And point number 5 is keep it real. Be real, yet be professional. So I hope there is something in that for you. I can tell you that to get a big story is a tremendous thrill. Fortunately, I've had a few in my long career, but it takes lots of good work, lots of consistency, and some good practices, and staying open and believing that anything is possible. So if you want to find out more about me, you can check out my YouTube channel, the Jason Dasey Cockatoo Media YouTube channel. Also on various social networks as well, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. I'd like to wish you well on your journalistic voyage. I will see you next time. I'm Jason Dasey. Bye-bye for now.